Hello YouTube, welcome to the Video Game House channel. You got me, VGH, and once again, we got another deck profile video. I call this Neutralizing Jelly. Now, the simplistic way of putting this deck is that it just doesn't let your opponent do basically half of any deck that's playable as of this moment. If you guys don't already know what these cards do, Frillish, using Oceanic Gloom, is a 1 Psychic Energy, 20 damaging move that just says your opponent cannot play items next turn. Very simple, very to the point, and everyone knows that stopping your opponent from playing items is a very, very powerful thing. Then we got Jellicent, whose Oceanic Curse ability states as long as it's in the active spot, your opponent can't play items or tools. Now, the fun part about this deck is that is the only 2 Pokemon in the entirety of the deck. The deck seems simple, but it's a little bit more challenging because of how you have to play around certain outs. Now, if you know the meta, you know or have an idea of most of the energies in the game, of what deck is playing what. You know, Charizard is playing like 5 or 6 fire and like a couple of, special energies maybe. And the entire idea around the deck is to stop your opponent from getting access to those energies. If you completely item lock them or you completely tool lock them, they are unable to get those energies back once they are put into the discard pile, which is what a lot of decks like to do. You know, if they get discarded, they use Super Rod, they use Night Stretcher, they use with items like Energy Retrieval, Superior Energy Retrieval, to get those cards back from their discard back into their hand or back into their deck or whatever it may be. But when you item lock them, once those energies are gone, they can't do anything about it. So that's why we built the deck the way that we did. Obviously, the 4 Lillies, 4 Judge, 4 Arven, 3 bosses, control the board, get stuff that you need, continuously keep cycling through all of your stuff, so that way you can find a super positive condition to win your game. We do run the Hilda, helps us find our special energy. I did forget to put energies in this. I just realized that. It is, I believe, 7 psychic energies and 1 ignition energy. If you, listened in this far, you know that now. But if you didn't listen to the blurb, then you wouldn't know. We won 1 Colress and 1 Xerosic. Now, the Xerosic, Colress, and Hilda are only techable because of the fact that we can still use them, but they're not the win cons per se. Xerosic helps you win the game because basically when you're locking your opponent from using these items and tools, they're filling up their hand a lot with stuff they can't use. You Xerosic, they have to discard 15 cards, whatever, and then you're able to use things like Lilies or Judge to shuffle your hand back into your deck, and that way you can deck them out is one way of winning the game. You don't need to attack every turn if every Pokemon on your board is a Jellicent, so if you just remove all their cards, they can't play the game. We also run things like Crushing Hammer, Pokégear, Nest Ball, Counter Catcher, Earthen Vessel, Enhanced Hammer, and Night Stretcher, Pal Pad, Super Rod, Ultra Ball, and the most important card, Handheld Fan. Now, you really got to pick and choose when you want to evolve Frillish, if you ever even really need to evolve Frillish. The only real reason you evolve Frillish into a Jellicent is to give it more HP, because you can still just do 20 damage over and over and over again and item lock your opponent every single turn. If you don't need to evolve Frillish, it's kind of better to not evolve it, because if you evolve your active Frillish into a Jellicent, then the ability is consistent until your opponent uses something like Boss's Orders that can get around the Jellicent and bring your Frillish that may be on the bench up into the active. So if you're going to evolve one Frillish, you got to make sure you evolve all of your Frillish. So that way your opponent can't just boss around it and still be able to use abilities, get their energies back, and then they can win the game that way. Yes, Crushing Hammer is a coin flip, but that's why we also run Handheld Fan. All of your Pokemon should be holding Handheld Fan. If they punch you in the face, you laugh it off, you move one of their energies to like Badoo or Cleffa or something lame, so that way their energy can never really go to the discard pile, but they also can't use it because they can't use things like Energy Switch because it's an item, so they can't get the energy back, and it's just gone. Crushing Hammer. Again, if an energy hits the discard pile, it stays there. They cannot get it back for most, if not every single deck in the meta right now, cannot get energies back from the discard pile without the use of an item or a tool or an ability of some kind, but you block that. So the idea is get your opponent's energies away from their Pokemon that are attacking and into their discard pile, whilst also making sure you control the prize pool. Frillish is a single prize, obviously. Jellicent just has more HP. If you can survive a hit, if you evolve into a Jellicent, sometimes it's worth just going to go full Jellicent. But we also run 2 battle cages. This stops Dragapult from shooting your bench, stops Dusknoir from shooting your bench. We also run Pokemon League headquarters, which you got to be a little safe on the safe side kind of thing, because if you're against big basics, then it's a really good card. But you also got to make sure you don't play it on turn 1, so that way you can still attack with Frillish. And we run a 1 of Neutralization Zone Ace Spec. Gotta say, it's funny because of how you can use it to kind of control the field. If you use your battle cages, your Pokemon League headquarters, and your opponent continues to try and get rid of it by using their own stadium, then you can slap down Neutralization Zone if you have full Frillish board, and they might not be able to actually take you out at that point. So, it's another just control aspect of the deck. Like I said, there's like 7 Psychics, and there's 1 Ignition, and the rest of the deck is all Psychic Energies. I believe it's 7. I'm not going to lie, I cannot remember. But, let's get into the gameplay and show you guys exactly how the deck kind of works, okay? Simply put, the deck likes to go second a lot more than it likes to go first. Can it still outplay if it goes first? Yes. But you'll want to try and get out more Frillish, so that way if your opponent can get a 1-turn hit, they won't be able to take you out. And also you can then evolve all your Frillish into Jellicent on turn 2 to make it a little bit better, because then of course you don't need to attack, you just kind of sit there and, you know, absorb hits. You can still attack every single turn if you get the double energies and go 80, 80, 80 and just keep hitting to try and win the game if need be, but it's also not necessary. I will have to say that the ladder right now was just littered with dark types. So, like, a lot of people running Sharpedo and Gengar. I kept running into those no matter how many times I played this deck. And even though it's an awful matchup, the deck can still, if ran well, probably get around to 50-50. They don't run too many energies. They put their energies on unnecessary Pokemon. So you just kind of, like, Crushing Hammer off the monkeys, and then, like, move the energies to stuff like Tatsugiri and, like, even just the Toxels or the Toxtricities. Like, they need 3 energies to attack. But if you kind of, like, give them 1, then they still need to, like, set up 2 more, and then, like, 3 energies are on a Pokemon that are, like, not that useful, and they can't one-shot Jellicent. So the idea is obviously just controlling the amount of energy they have to hopefully get as much of it into the discard pile as you possibly can. Like I did on turn 1, you saw me Crushing Hammer, get rid of the energy on the Monkey Dory, so they can't send the damage back to me, and then I was able to take out the Ghastly, so we're able to start taking things. And since one of our win conditions is also a deck out, Lillie's Determination draws us extra cards if we're at 6. So if we can get that free 1 knockout, pretty good. So that way we draw a few less cards. We don't necessarily need to get to 8 after we get ourselves situated and set up. So my opponent obviously having 9 cards in their hand right now is awesome for us because they can't really do a lot with no tools and no items. And every time our opponent plays a supporter that isn't a boss's orders, it's great. But knowing that their out is a quick boss's orders into that Frillish just on the bench and then throwing a bunch of items kind of always makes you feel like I'm terrified because I cannot find the evolution and I really, really need it. I flipped the coin on Tails and failed that one anyway, and he still conceded anyway. But I understand because, like, on ladder, when you run into a stun deck like this, you don't really want to play against it. I'd have to say, if you hit a dark deck, you're gonna have a bad time. Like, I had a lot worse time trying to figure out how to deal with a dark deck than, you know, just beating a dark deck or playing as a dark deck. It was not easy. But it was still, like, at least even. But in a lot of decks, like I said, if you can just control their energies, you can just win. So it looks like we got a Solrock Lunatone, which again, you'd think this is a bad matchup, but even the Solrock can only do 70 damage, and there's nothing that they can do, sub maybe a Vitality Band, to knock out a Frillish, because their answer to do a little bit more damage than 70 is the Power Up Plus, or whatever the Gatorade bottle is, that plus is 30 from damage for fighting types. So I was able to just basically not worry about it because I know he couldn't do enough damage. I'm just trying to get rid of the fighting energy, and I whiffed both times. Wasn't too happy about it. And I think I did make a mistake here by throwing away the Judge, but I wanted to hold Xerosic because I know that the combo from Solrock and Lunatone allows them to draw a bunch of cards that, with enough luck, they can't do anything with. Oh, and Arven is your best friend, by the way, in this deck, because 9 times out of 10, your opponent can still throw an Arven and get an item and a tool out of their deck, but if you have Jellicent on the board, they can't do anything about it, so it's more fun than anything else. We would not be able to attack if we evolved into Jellicent, so instead I wanted to do the item lock and leave Jellicent on the bench, so we still have access to it. It seems as though they can't find energies anymore, so this is just good for me. And by getting this Jellicent down with the second energy, we can get a knockout on Solrock. And a reminder, now that Solrock is gone, Lunatone's ability doesn't trigger until they find another Solrock. And we know they have a Nest Ball from Arven, but they will never be allowed to use it unless they use boss's orders first on my Frillish. So, like I said, it's dangerous, and it does give them an out, but it also allows you to know their only out is a boss's orders. What can they do is what you have to think of after that. Like, can they really work around this? They kind of got stuck there, and obviously, as you saw, they could not work around it very easily, so instead of trying to play the rest of it out, they just decided to hard concede. Felt great. Felt great. That's another thing. When you do get the collection of, like, I think I can do this, it feels amazing. Unfortunately, I got no opener here, and my opponent took 6 years to try and figure... This is all sped up by 250%, by the way. So, whenever you see a long pause, it was way longer in real life. I don't even remember which one this was. Oh, this was a Charmander. This one made me laugh hysterically, because you know how they run, like, 2 Charmeleons now? Yeah, it does not matter. Like, they have to find the Charmeleon without using Ultra Ball. And the funniest part here is that I see him throw Ultra Ball and go, oh, he's gonna go get Charmeleon because he knows what Frillish does, it item locks. And then I see Charizard. So the first thought in my head was, he either has Charmeleon in his hand, or he has Rare Candy in his hand, and he's gonna be real upset what I'm about to do. Find Colress, we find Battle Cage, we flip the coin. Oh, we got heads. So now he's out one of his energies, and we item lock. So now he can't use Night Stretcher or Super Rod to get that energy back. And Charizard runs like 5 or 6 energy, maybe. So 1 down. We just count it out. We just count out how many energy he has to try and get rid of it all. Unfortunately, he did have the Charmeleon, and we know he has a Charizard in hand, so we're trying to, like, work around that, but we just had the out, so easy deletion. I think if he did have the Charizard, though, I don't think I would have had an out there, but it is that simple, because since we just stopped him from using items and tools, he was unable to use things like Arven, which is one of the most prominent cards in the Charizard list, to get Buddy Buddy Poffin and TM Evolution to go off, to just kind of pop off. Just 1 item lock, and suddenly they can't do anything, and it just feels great. Charizard is, like, a pretty good matchup. Even though they have dark types, obviously, Charizard takes a little while to set up. So again, we ran into another dark type deck with Mega Sharpedo, which in tournament, I don't believe you'll run into it enough for this to really be a threat, but it happened so often during my practicing with this deck and testing of this deck that I had to... I'm going to add it into these videos. Charizard, again, it's harder for them to get their evolutions off. With things like this deck, with the Mega Sharpedo, it's a little easier for them to get the big damage they need, because it's only just 2 dark energies, and they're able to hit for instant knockout for a Jellicent. So we kind of have to, like, work around it a little. It's a little bit more of a maneuver of, like, how do we deal with this? And, well, our idea was set up as many Pokemon as possible for item locking. And like I said before, you know, some games you just want to go Jellicent, but Jellicent here means your opponent gets 2 prizes rather than just 1 prize. And you can extend the game if you just go single prize, single prize, single prize, Super Rod, single prize, single prize, single prize. And then we have the 4 handheld fans to try and take those energies and put them somewhere else where they won't be utilized at all. So, you know, we were able to we lose 1 here, yes, but we are still able to go get another Frillish and potentially try and find another answer. We boss up other Pokemon because it's a higher retreat cost, so at least we have a way of locking them in. They can't use items, their retreat cost is a 2 cost, and they still can't specifically find easy answers. I think this is the game where we realize that, like, Air Balloon is an easy answer if Jellicent isn't the active Pokemon. So thinking of a way to work around that is a little difficult when you can't run Jamming Tower. We got so lucky. We got 2 one-ofs right there with the Pokégear 3.0 out of 37 cards in our deck. It's crazy. We saw our opponent try and gear up an energy, so we just move around another guy. So we're just trying to keep him as handled as possible And with triple Toxtricity, yes, they can set up a whole bunch of energies, but they also have to use a whole bunch of energies to do anything. Like, Toxtricity needs 3 energies to attack. But if he has 2 and he can retreat with 2, then we have to find a way around that. And we find double hammer. We whiff. And we got it. So now we can at least get another energy off of their Pokemon, which is more or less what I want to do, because now he's out another Pokemon. Item locking makes it so he can't get those energies back. It's harder. He needs a second energy retreat, so, having 1 energy over 2 means that I can bring that Toxtricity up now if I wanted to. So, pretty good. Unfortunately, Sharpedo does have a free retreat cost, so he is able to get out of the active if he doesn't need to be there. And this is where I try my best to evolve my Pokemon up, so that way we won't have too many issues in case he tries to boss with the Frillish. But I didn't want to evolve the active Frillish and not be able to, clear, and obviously then boss Frillish. This way, since I attacked, he doesn't have items. If I evolve the active Frillish into a Jellicent and he uses bosses on me, I lose it. So, there goes Mega Shark again. So now everyone has 1 energy, except for his other Shark. But the other Shark, can attack with 1 energy, so we don't want that happening. And we try and go for our final Crushing Hammer to remove all the energies from the Shark, and he has no energies. And I believe the reason he concedes is because he ran out of energy, so he couldn't attack me anymore, and that was the game. All right, and simply put, I believe this is our last game that we're going to be showing off with the deck and how simple it is to just say no to your opponent and just feel good about it. We saw Grand Tree right there, which is really funny because it's one of the only cards that get around the item locking whole thing where they can go, okay, I use Grand Tree ability, evolve all the way up. So I was terrified to see that thing, and I was trying to make sure I held on to a stadium for most of the game. As soon as I found one, I had to keep thinking, I can't get rid of this, because if I see Grand Tree, he's gonna work it around and just stop me from playing the game. We also had a negative experience, because unfortunately, as you saw, I had to go first, and I didn't find an energy, which is very rare. Why we run the 1 of Earthen Vessel? It's why we run 9 energies in the deck. And you can see my opponent is setting up Dino. It's also another big counter to the deck that I have is Blaziken, which is super rare. You probably won't even see it outside of this video, realistically. Blaziken EX allows you to take energy from your discard pile and just attach it to one of your Pokemon. The entire deck moves energy around or tries to get it off the board because it's very hard for normal decks to get it back. But Torchic was just kind of there, and I'm like, oh, this is not what I wanted to say. So we do have item lock on, so you see Arven come up, so we are, it's only a tool that they can get. So we're not really too worried, and he only picks up a rare candy. So we're expecting Hydreigon being in his hand, or Blaziken to be in his hand. But I think he did that and went, oh right, I'm item locked, I can't do anything. Find a Lillie's, go for the Crushing Hammer, because these decks, when I was making an assumption, I assumed they didn't have too many Steel energies. So I got rid of the Steel energy, expecting there only be 2, and if I get rid of all of them, he can't use Obsidian, which is the better move. And we're just evolving all these things, getting rid of Tatsugiri, and we're just going to start going in as quickly as possible. I get rid of Judge Earthen because I don't need these things, but I needed to make sure I had all of my Jellicents ready, so my opponent cannot boss around a Jellicent now. And now they're locked. Whether or not they want a boss to stop themselves from getting knocked out, that's fine for me, but they're still tool and item locked, and that's the biggest composition I wanted. My expectation in their hand right now, because they had that rare candy and they haven't done anything with it since, is that they still have rare candy and either Blaziken or Hydreigon in their hand. So I'm not super worried about anything. Right now they have 3 cards in their hand. I know what 2 of them are. The third one, there you go, another energy, so he can get a Steel energy down and then 1 into his hand. So he's just trying to set up the other guys. I'm looking for options, specifically that, to go deal with the Pokemon that has a lot of energies on it. Because once again, you delete the thing that has energies, and it's very hard for them to get those energies back. They've also used 2 Crespin already, so they're only down to 2 Crespin left, and 2 Steel energies in the discard pile. We're controlling the board state, where my opponent will thus not be allowed to do anything. This was a Hail Mary, because I was trying to find Colress or Hilda, specifically, to get the special energy to remove the Monkey Dory. Now, obviously, this game, you saw that the base spec was in here, but we weren't able to really use it here because we've already evolved to Jellicent. But in other matchups, like that Sharpedo matchup, their biggest attacker is always Sharpedo. So if they set up the Sharpedos, or you remove all the energies and get them either into the discard pile, or you can put them just all on Sharpedo if you feel like it, you can still use Neutralization Zone to counter the Sharpedos attack. So, just a thought. Just a reminder. My opponent, I couldn't get it, like, I used all my Pokégears, I was out of, like, hand refresh, I was like, I couldn't really get to what I was looking for, so I just decided to go in. I wanted to get the boss's orders so bad to try and take the Dino out, but it's fine, he couldn't do anything anyway. So, it just goes to show you, the deck is very, very strong and very, very simple. It only runs very few limited Pokemon. Sure, you give your opponent a couple extra draws here and there, and we weren't really able to show off the Xerosic stuff, but I guarantee you, if you run the deck, you can throw things at a wall and you'll understand the deck really, really quickly. Would I suggest it for a closed deck list, best of one tournament? Yes, I think you have a higher % chance to run into the top meta decks that you can actually counter with this really, really easily, rather than on TCG Ladder, where for some unknown reason, right now, it's like the Dark Ages. We're only seeing a Dark-type decks. I'm seeing Gengar, I'm seeing Sharpedo, I'm seeing just everything that has to deal with just dealing with Dark types, which doubles damage and knocks out Jellicent, making it worse to have. And it was quite frustrating to kind of just deal with that. Anytime I didn't see it, though, it was like Charizard, which is another Dark type, but it was like more easily dealt with than Sharpedo, but still, the deck is incredible. The Battle Cage and Enhanced Hammer helps you instantly get rid of special energies, such like Neo Upper with Dragapult. The ability to item lock your opponent stops them from using things like Rare Candy, so they have to manually find certain cards, which is not very easy when you can't use things like Ultra Ball or Nest Ball to find things like Fez to draw your extra cards when you take a knockout. If you take a knockout, sometimes you can judge your opponent into a knockout right afterwards, so that way then they're at a random hand, no items, no tools, a deleted Pokemon, and now you're just in a better position than your opponent, where you can just control the board and find what you need while you slowly just build yourself up better and better while the deck snowballs out of control. It's a lot of fun. I definitely suggest it. If you're into control lists, this is probably one of my favorite control lists that I've ever seen. It's very, very simple. Scale of 1 to 10, probably overall greatness, a 5. Best of 1 closed decklist tournament, probably a 7. And laddering, depending on the season, I guess, for out of the dark Pokemon type season, probably a lot better, to be honest. But yeah, if you guys enjoy the decklist, give me a like, subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. We got a lot of stuff coming, so I hope you guys are ready for all of it.